My purpose today is to reach out across disciplines and invite design thinking into this big conversation. That is,
my family and I were fortunate enough to join and support her on these adventures.
Here's what you do. Hide behind the plant by the elevator. When he comes out of his office at the end of the day, jump in the elevator and he won't have a choice. The doors will close and you got
to me have their sort of unspoken rules. You know, you can't use a 4-4 kick or you'll be looked down on in the classroom.
So how do you measure a kiss?
Or for most people, it's the land of broken dreams. Every year, 100,000 people move in and out of Hollywood.
Told that your goal is to make everybody laugh. The instructions are to leave the room and return with enthusiasm and do something great.
I mean, I feel like I'm blessed with getting to experience it as often as I pay attention to it.
Our world is changing and we live in a different world now. And what were once individual problems are really now global problems for all of us.
comfort, feeling unburdened, and unburdening to those they love. Existential peace, and a sense of wonderment and spirituality.
Okay, we have a very strong trading relationship with the United States, and we will be looking to ensure that we can maintain that strongest possible relationship into the future.
That black line shows us, using the supplemental measure, how much actual poverty remains once we count the effects of anti-poverty programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just think of it as sort of the training center for creating, like, Iron Man.
There's an analogy we use at my company. We call it TWD, which stands for Total Web Domination. And it's a joke.
On the page. And what I like to do is turn that back to the student that made it and talk to them about how they justify doing that.
On themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful. There's nothing as powerful. It's hard to kill the human spirit.
And for the idea that even though it was unlikely after being told no so many times, it was possible that the next school would accept me. And so I continued to knock on doors until I was accepted.
On quickly. Last fall, we just released a brand new practice civics test. So as part of becoming a US citizen, you have to pass a civics test.
And you can say, well, where does this lie between classical and quantum computation?
And we begin to search, we begin to read books, we begin to listen to seminars, watch television shows or broadcasts, or listen to radio shows where people are talking.
No idea if you're seeing this, but I'm just gonna look ahead and trust that you're there.
So I've talked about how blockchains could lower uncertainty in who we're dealing with. The second uncertainty that we often face is just not having transparency into.
If we love them, thank the goddess that we're allowed to marry if that is what we wish. So I
can't help but think as a retoucher that I could fix that tear and mend that scratch, and I knew hundreds of people who could do the same.
If my obsession was eternal life, Naveed's obsession was touch.
Aspire to. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can help our world achieve our 15-year goal. And that would translate into 1 million babies' lives saved.
Because I think we're setting ourselves up for trouble. Trouble certainly in how we relate to each other.
It's become a huge topic these days as we try to manage the overwhelming information flows competing for our attention.
United by what makes us strong, the bonds that unite us as a people, and our shared interest in the UK being an open, successful trading nation in the future.
The degree of these stories vary greatly. So what made you pick to do a collection?
I set out to really challenge myself.
That's why it's so important we do something now and not wait. In Mark 16, verse 15, Jesus tells us to go out into the world so that others will know.
They want to go in and out of all the places they are because the thing that matters most to them is control over where they put their attention.
Kepler was one of those early watchmakers who discovered that the pendulums all would synchronize in his clock shop, his watch shop. And what he realized is they all synchronized to the rate of the largest pendulum.
My wish for you is that you fall in love with possibility and you marvel in what it will create in your life and in this world.
You are worried because you worry because you worry.
We test and treat every pregnant woman in the world.
So if you're expecting a tie or a toaster or socks, and you actually get a week-long vacation in Fiji,
if you're involved, say, in the travel industry, in any way, look at pilgrimage. Look very closely at pilgrimage. We haven't begun to scratch the surface of what travel could be.
But when you ask, do you trust your city councilor? Do you trust your mayor?
We turn to other people in order to feel less anxious or in order to feel alive. When this happens, we're not able to appreciate who they are.
And used to lower uncertainty about who we're dealing with.
You can pick up the rudiments of a smart visit to that particular city.
Have ever done successfully, which is to lead effectively and to be happy and walk away with your soul.
And then in times of no rain, we redirected our household gray water, that once used wash water from the showers, laundry, or sinks, to the landscape, turning that wastewater into another free resource water.
Your way out on Phobos and Deimos will be an ounce or so. So it's a better simulation of zero gravity than the simulations we use to train for zero gravity.
That he feels he doesn't have colleagues anymore at work. When he goes to work, he doesn't stop by to talk to anybody, he doesn't call.
And David's son wound up in the pit that unfortunately wound up being his own grave.
What we promise our students and our alumni is that we will prepare you to have meaningful lives, to have successful careers, and to be able to have a positive impact on the world.
That may or may not present themselves in a radically fast-paced way.
And we've seen companies produce new energy technologies and high-skilled jobs, not in America, but in countries like China, India, and Germany.
I promise you, every week of your life, you will run into a CBS graduate who will make you feel proud that you are part of this remarkable community.
We would propose to make a hybrid elephant that has the best features of modern elephants and the best features of mammoths.
Once I pull the beam out of my own eye, I can help somebody else do the same thing. And things started changing for me.
I mean, it just seems to me that if you don't punish offenses, whether it's the President of the United States or a young child in the kitchen, they'll just keep doing what they're doing.
Decide that you're going to push yourself. The last chapter to your life has not been written yet, and it doesn't matter about what happened yesterday. It doesn't matter about what happens to you. What matters is, what are you going to do about it?
Hope that next year the rain will start to fall again.
My purpose today is to reach out across disciplines and invite design thinking into this big conversation.
Might we be privileged to receive?
It's what Daniel Kahneman used to refer to as the experiencing self and the remembering self.
And so in teaching Ben to refuse to label himself as blind, she set his mind in motion in the search of a greater possibility.
Your imagination can relieve your pain. Your imagination can help you work out things about the world that you may not necessarily understand.
Conflicts remain, and too many people are restricted access to the increasingly fluid means.
I can still remember the screams of all the imaginary people, "Please help me!"
Selves. The people who will remind you that you are not alone when your emotions get the best of you.
To protect the borders, remove criminal aliens, and stop the drugs from pouring into our country.
Because they were taking rent-stabilized units and then putting families in these completely decrepit, you name it, we've seen it, and just dumping them there with no services.
And age. We usually don't care for, repair, clean, carry around our coffee cup, our shopping bag, our bottle of water. We use them, we throw them out, we forget about them, because we know there's a workforce on the other side that's going to take it all away.
Repeat those behaviors that are healthy for your brain and break those behaviors and habits that are not.
His reply was simple. Neumann was the only genius, considered to possibly be the greatest mathematician of all time.
What I mean. Facebook has had a tool for a long time that allow people to report photos that may be in violation of our community standards, things like spam and abuse.
.org today and click on training opportunities to learn about upcoming trainings and to request a training in your area.
In Stanford's founding grant to promote the public welfare by exercising influence on behalf of humanity and civilization.
Imagine the change you would be making in the world, the injustice.
You're in a hurry. You're in such a hurry that you're prepared to, dare I say, cut corners and go through a stop sign or two.
We can invent the future that we want and not the one that we're given. So instead of staying up all night passively consuming, find your community.
Being in charge. Do you have someplace you want to take people, like Steve Jobs did, and you're so determined to get there that you're just going to crash through any obstacle? Can you do that?
One thing that you saw back in Minneapolis.
And I had questions and no answers, and I asked my mum and dad, why did this happen? I asked doctors, why did this happen? They don't know.
Maybe we can greet it with a sense of wonder.
And we would heat our bathwater on hot plates. But she never gave up hope, ever. And she never allowed us to give up hope either.
They learn how to actively listen. But guess what? They also learn how to advocate for their point of view.
I forgive you, and I do not hate you. I never hated you.
And I'll hunt fish and skin them alive and, eat them, and maybe drag a desalinization plant behind me for fresh water.
Tough stuff. And so you have to learn the skill or the discipline of the sculptor in order to express yourself in stone. So in every other way, whatever you do, you require a skill.
And it means that the language you speak sculpts your perception of the world. It means that the culture in which you live shapes your worldview. It means that the people that you meet you in return and thus affect you. We had it all.
Terrified of being wrong. We don't like to seem like we don't know what we're talking about. So we would rather make something up or nod along quietly instead of learning to say 3 simple words. I don't know. It can be the most liberating phrase you ever learn.
You're acknowledging your collaborators in a way which is very great, sort of transparent and open source in a way. Shout out to the MetaHaven intern. But I'd like to talk to you about Boss. Is one of these examples of this wonderful sort of inversion of the love song, the NSA agent. But even if I didn't know any of that and I just came to it, it's like this ideas of voice, of processing. You mentioned cutting off the attack and the end delay, and this idea of kind of contemporary existence as being end.
You got it. Don't tell me stop it. Stop it.
To surrender unless you're completely fed up with suffering. You've had enough suffering.
What's inside? I suppose from a modern perspective, it's almost the first thing a modern scientist would think of. Well, I'll start making some measurements. So why is that a radical move? It will.
We just talk. Can we just talk about where we're going before we get lost? And be our thoughts. Can't get what we want without knowing. I've never felt like this before. I apologize if I'm moving too far. Can we just talk?
This she you see? She doesn't have time to waste guessing. She wants to taste the sincerity from their lips. She wants those hips of hers to writhe during a dose of her lover's moans and cries into the...
Al final es la abreviatura de Representational State Transfer. Y ahora diremos todo, bueno, vale, eso está muy bien, pero ¿qué significa eso? REST no es otra cosa que una interfaz, ¿vale?, para conectar varios sistemas basados en el protocolo HTTP, uno de los protocolos más antiguos.
In this case, alarm systems, and then use them towards cultural ends. So for example, we get an adrenaline rush when our overactive amygdala...
I often think of why you on mine, but I'll keep your number safe, cause I hope one day you'll get this and still call me.
I use pencils, right? And I noticed that this pencil hasn't been sharpened. I was just wondering, can someone sharpen this pencil for me? Could we...
As old as you can get your doctor to sign off to go on these programs.
This is Julia Magic. Today we're in the subway and we're gonna do some smoke rings.
When a fire starts to burn, right, and it starts to spread, she gonna bring that attitude home.
Study. So I want to suggest today a couple of ways to think about sanitation that will perhaps help ameliorate the stigma.
Here, there's virtually no water at all. So it seems really.
The blue whale!
Today is my 89th birthday, and to my very considerable surprise, I find myself in a place that I've never been to before, and which it is a great, great privilege.
What I'm about to experience is the process of taming wild animal.
We tell very convincing stories, we slightly shrug our shoulders. We commit terrible crimes, and we smile at the delight in getting away with it.